All right, it's 2 o'clock, so let's get started. Final week. Woo! Last quiz is out tomorrow, and I put a little entry in your Blackboard that says what your quiz grade is if you drop the lowest 3. That's not exactly how quizzes will be graded, but it's just to give you an idea of what it should be. Final exam review Thursday in class. All right. Any questions before we start? Okay. So, what did we talk about last week? Sorry? Yeah, Rice's theorem and what in general? Undecidability. Yeah. Right? So we talked about some problems that were undecidable. What were some of those problems that we talked about?
Almost all of them are undecidable?
Yeah, almost all of them, but like what are the specific ones we talked about? Yeah, ATM was one. So that was encodings of machines and a string. So M is a TM and W is the language. And the way we showed that that was undecidable was if it were decidable, then we could make a machine that could contradict itself. And obviously that's a problem, so that's why it's undecidable. What was another problem we saw was undecidable? ATM. Yeah, Alt was one, and that's pretty much ATM, but a related one was ATM. So that was, I'm doing ATM instead of Alt TM for a reason, we'll see in a second. So M is a TM with empty language. Okay. How did we show that that was undecidable?
Wasn't that Rice's theorem?
Well, I'll get to that in a second. But how did we directly prove that that was undecidable? Yeah, reduction, yeah. So a reduction is using one problem to try to solve another. And we say that ATM reduces to ETM. So you can think of this as if you can find a decider for ETM, then you can find one for ATM. Okay? And we know that ATM is undecidable, so there's no possible way that ETM could be decidable. Because if it were, then ATM would be. Okay? So yeah, that was reduction that we saw. What else did we do to find undecidable problems? Or how did we find a lot more undecidable problems? It was already said.
Rice's theorem?
Rice's theorem, yeah. And what did that say?
If it's non-trivial and one isn't non-trivial, then you can...
Yeah, so something has to be non-trivial.
Yeah.
Property. Property, yeah, okay. So every non-trivial property, but property of what? Of the language, yes. So of the language of what?
P.
Turing machine. What about Turing machines?
Input?
Turing machine descriptions. Okay. You can't have a language of Turing machines. You can have one of Turing machine descriptions. So TM descriptions. And what did we say about all of these properties that are non-trivial? Undecidable. So ignore non-trivial for a second. What does property of the language of Turing machines mean? Yeah, it says something about the language, but formally it means if you have two Turing machines with the exact same language, then that should be the only deciding factor of whether you're in the language or not. So, if you have two Turing machines with the same language, they both have the property, or they both don't have the property. It can't be the case that one of them does and one of them doesn't. Okay? So with that said, what does non-trivial mean in this context?
One accepts, one doesn't.
Yeah, so there is some Turing machine with the property, and there is some Turing machine without the property. Okay? It can't be the case that every single Turing machine has the property, because then it'd be easy at that point. Okay? So let's see. Can I apply Rice's theorem to show that ETM is undecidable?
Yes.
Yeah, so let's check. Is it a property of the language of Turing machine descriptions? Yes, it is all Turing machine descriptions. And so is it a property of the language? So if I have two Turing machines with the same language, are they both in here or both out? Or could it be the case that one of them's in, one of them's out? If they have the same language.
No, they're both in.
No, they better both be in there because they're either both empty or both not empty. So therefore they're both in or both out. Is it non-trivial? Yeah. So how do we show that? Make a Turing machine that accepts everything that's not in there. If you make another Turing machine that rejects everything, it is in there. So therefore we just showed this in non-trivial. All right? And one important note, how did we show Rice's theorem? Well, how did we prove it? Using a reduction from ATM. So this is done via a reduction from ATM. So can I use Rice's theorem to prove ATM is undecidable? Ignore the fact that it would basically be saying do a reduction from ATM to ATM, which would kind of be pointless at that point. But can I directly use Rice's theorem to prove ATM undecidable? Well, let's check. Is it a language of Turing machine descriptions?
Yes.
Sure. Is it purely Turing machine descriptions?
No, keep it
No. It has strings in it. So I can't apply Rice's theorem. Okay. Suppose I augmented ETM to say, and M has at least 5 states. Can I now use ETM to use Rice's theorem to prove this modified version of ETM undecidable? Well, let's check. Is it a language of Turing machine descriptions? Yep. It's still only Turing machine descriptions. Is it a property of the language of Turing machine descriptions? No, because if I have two Turing machines with the same language, I could have one machine with 6 states and one with 4 states. And then therefore one would be in the language, one would not be in the language, even though they have the same language. Okay? So I cannot prove that this is undecidable via Rice's theorem. Okay? But any questions about these? All right. So let's prove that this language is undecidable. So it's kind of like infinite DFA or infinite PDA, and we showed that both of those were decidable, but this one will turn out to be undecidable. So let's see. Can I use Rice's theorem to prove that infinite TM is undecidable?
Yes.
Yeah, so let's check. Is it consisting entirely of Turing machine descriptions?
Yeah.
Yep, so that passes our check. Is it a property of the language of Turing machine descriptions? Property of the language.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's check. If we have L of M1, it's pretty clear that it is, but let's just check anyway. If we have two machines with the same language, could it be the case that M1's language is infinite and M2's language is finite?
No.
No, because they're the same. So then we must have that either both M1 and M2's descriptions are in, so I'm going to abbreviate it to ITM. I don't want to write it all. Or either they're both in, or they are both in. Okay? Can't be the case that one's in, one's out. So that's pretty easy to see. What do I need to show next? Non-trivial. So if I want to show it's non-trivial, what do I need to produce? Well, I need a Turing machine with language that's finite and one that has infinite language. What's an easy language that's infinite? Sigma star. What's an easy one that's finite? Empty. So we can have one machine that accepts everything, one that rejects everything. So choose M1 that accepts all strings. Then we know that M1's description is in infinite TM. And if we choose M2 that rejects all strings, then we know M2's description is not in infinite TM. Okay. So I just showed now that it's a non-trivial property of the language. What can I say now? Undecidable, how? Via Rice's theorem. So this, what I've written so far, makes no sense until I say by Rice's theorem. Yeah.
Do you have to say you put the empty string in the star, or is it fine to start it like that?
You could say that L of M1 here is sigma star, and then therefore that. And then for this one, maybe M2 is empty, and then that implies it. So I kind of skipped a little step in there, but I'd say even without that, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, but I gotta say by Rice's theorem, because otherwise this would make no sense. So, by Rice's theorem, I should get these words laminated because they're so important. By Rice's theorem, ITM, infinite TM, is undecidable. Okay. Cool. Well, kind of sad in this case, but it's nice that we were able to prove that. What's another way that I can prove that this is undecidable? Okay, I can do a reduction, right? From some problem that I already know undecidable to infinite TM. So what I want to accomplish here is, if I can solve infinite TM, then I can solve some undecidable problem. In the reduction that we did for Rice's theorem, what problem did we reduce from? ATM, right? Yeah, as I wrote here. So maybe we can try a direct reduction from ATM. Okay, so let's try that. So what we want to do is ATM reduces to infinite. Okay. Well, let's see. What do I want to accomplish here? I'm going to assume that there is some decider for infinite TM, and then using that decider, I can make a decider for ATM, which of course can't exist. Okay? So I'm going to suppose some decider D decides infinite TM. Then I'm going to use D to try to solve ATM. Well, let's see. What does any decider or machine for ATM take as input?
Description of machine.
A machine and a string. If I feed that machine whatever's been given to me to D, and it says yes or no, whatever, does that tell me anything about whether that machine accepts W? No, just because it may have infinite language or not doesn't imply anything about whether it accepts W. So I gotta make another machine. I can't just blindly feed the input machine to D here. So let's try to figure out how we do that. So we're taking as input MW, where M is a TM, W a string. I better not say W in L of M because I have no way of checking that, obviously. Well, that must mean I need to make a machine. So I'm going to construct M prime, and that's going to take some input X. So X is just some arbitrary string. All right, well, I want to feed M prime to this decider D. And I want whatever D says about M prime to give me information about whether M accepts W. Okay? So I want one outcome to be whatever one we pick. I want one outcome to be if M accepts W, and the other one to be if M does not accept W. Let's see. What's a really nice finite language? Favorite finite language? Empty set, that's fine. Favorite infinite language?
Sigma star.
Sigma star. It actually doesn't matter here. Well, let's see. What we could do is, let's just accept a finite number of strings no matter what. Okay? 0 in this case. But I can accept any finite number. Then, in this machine, I'm going to run M on W. And if it accepts, I'll accept all the other strings. Okay? So what does that mean? That means that if M does not accept W, then I'll only have accepted a finite number of strings. So let's see. As a first step, let's accept all the strings that we would need in order to accept the empty set. Already done, so that's good. Then we need to run M on W. So run M on W, and then check if M accepts W, then I want to accept it. So here's something that's really important. When I start making this M prime right here, is the fact of whether M halts on input W fixed? Is it going to change every time I run it, or is it going to stay exactly whether it runs forever or not? Is it fixed? Yeah, it is fixed. Once I receive this M and W, whatever it does, it's not going to change that behavior. So think about this. In this line, if M accepts W, that's going to either be always true or always false, right? Because it's fixed. So let's think about it for a second. If M does not accept W, what strings will M prime accept? If M does not accept W, will I accept anything in M prime? No, because the only way I could have accepted is if M accepted W. So, if M does not accept W, what is the language of M prime? Empty. All right. So let's think of the other case. If M does accept W, what is the language of M prime? It's everything. It's every string. Because if M really does accept W, this condition will always be true. So no matter what input X I'm given, I will accept it in that case. Okay? So if M accepts W, M prime's language is infinite, it's sigma star. So what do you think I should do with M prime now? run this decider on it. Yep. So run D on the description of M. And I suppose that it decides infinite TM, so I must say accept or reject. So if it accepts M prime, or if it rejects it, then we'll see what to do in both cases. Okay? And you may be thinking, well, you said to run M on W. That justifiably could take an infinite amount of time, right? Do I care? No, why? I'm not actually running it. I don't know how D works, right? I'm just building the machine and feeding it to this supposed decider. It'll figure out how to do it, supposedly, but I'm not actually running the thing. All right, so let's see. If D accepts M prime, that must mean M prime's language is infinite, right? That must mean it's infinite. Well, what's the only way in the machine that we just made that we could have had infinite language? Yeah, the only way we could have, as we noted before, is if M accepts W. That's the only way I could have accepted anything, period. So, with that said, M accepts W, what should I say to my supposed decider for ATM? Accept, because I just determined M accepts W. And if it rejects, that must mean M prime's language is finite. So what does that tell me about M and W? It must, yeah. It must mean that M does not accept W, which must mean that I should say reject. Because I'm trying to decide whether it accepts. Okay? Well, let's see. Does this take a finite amount of time to run? Assuming D, yes. Because once I know M and W, I can make this machine surely in a finite amount of time. This supposedly takes a finite amount of time, and so does this. So therefore, I could decide ATM, but we know we can't. So we can't decide infinite TM. So infinite TM is undecided. Okay. So the structure is almost always the same. If you're doing an ATM to this problem approach, you're going to first make the machine that will, depending on the behavior of N and W, will accept some number of strings prematurely, then accept more strings depending on whether M accepts W or not. Okay? Any questions about these two approaches? Yeah.
This reduction thing on the right class, so like you said, like there is basically the same approach for every problem. How does this whole thing actually relate to if this is independent or not?
If you're doing it from ATM. Yeah. This is actually the backbone of how Rice's theorem works. So I'm kind of reproducing the proof, essentially, but for this particular example.
What of this whole thing is in particular related to the infinite property of the machine?
Well, here. So once I start making M prime, M and W are fixed. So therefore, it will accept or it will not accept for sure. One of those two, for sure. I don't have to decide either one of those. I know one of those two will happen. So if it does accept W, then I'm gonna, which is always gonna be true if it does accept W, then I will accept whatever input M prime gives me. Well, it's given to M prime. So therefore, in that case, it will have infinite language, right? And then therefore, in the other case, if M does not accept W, I won't accept anything in M prime. And then therefore, I will have only a finite language. There's nothing special about sigma star or empty set here. I'm just making one that's finite versus one that's infinite. Okay? Does that answer your question? Sure. Okay. We can talk offline. Any other questions?
So the only reason you have to do the reduction would be if it didn't fit Rice's theorem's criteria, right?
The only reason I would have to do reduction is if it does not satisfy Rice's theorem or you're told not to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What if I made this change with at least 5 states?
That would not let it do Rice's because
I
that's
can't do Rice's theorem there for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Can I still do the reduction?
Yes.
Yes, because what I would do is, if I have a step like 1.5 right here, add states to m prime if necessary. And then therefore, I would then satisfy this part, so it's not even important anymore. So then it would decide the original thing. So the great thing about reductions is that they always will work. There's if it really is undecidable, but it doesn't always work for Rice's theorem. Even if you have entirely Turing machine descriptions, like you do here. But the nice thing is that Rice's theorem is so easy comparatively. Okay, so if you could apply Rice's theorem, please do. It makes everyone's life easy. It's so much easier to apply Rice's theorem. Okay. But any other questions? Okay, so let's talk about this guy. So it's a lot like infinite TM, but the only thing different is that we guarantee that the empty string is in the language of M, and this is undecidable as well. So let's try the 2 approaches again. So Rice's theorem. Can I apply Rice's theorem to this language?
Yes.
Yeah, well, let's check. Is it a language entirely of Turing machine descriptions? Easy to check. Is it a property of the language of Turing machine descriptions? So let's see. If we have 2 Turing machines with the same language, could it ever be the case that one of those machines is in and one of them's out? No. Well, the fact that they're the same means that the empty string is in both or in neither. So therefore, they're either both in or both out. So, same conclusion. And, well, what else do I need to check? It's not trivial. So, can you find an example of a Turing machine that has the property and one that doesn't? Yeah, actually the exact same examples will work here. So, same example. And so therefore, by Rice's theorem, ESTM is undecidable. And strange that the conclusion's almost as long as the proof, but anyway. So that was short and sweet. But let's prove it directly. So let's do a reduction. Well, let's see. Any particular language you want to reduce from? Let's do ATM, because this one always works. ATM is almost always the language you should go to.
Does ATM always work?
What?
Will ATM always work?
No. Because there are. If this language really is undecidable, it will work. Yeah. Because I realize that there are some languages that are undecidable relative to ATM. Even if you can decide ATM, then those are still undecidable. But all I need is that this one is harder than ATM, which is always the case for undecidable. So it'll always work.
Okay.
But it just might not be as pretty as something else. Okay. I can do another example once we've done this. But so if I wanted to do this, then I need to suppose D decides ESTM, then let's see. So we gotta make a decider for ATM using that. And then the same thing, modification on M. Well, let's see. If I feed M into this decider for ESTMD, does that tell me about whether it accepts W or not? No, if W was the empty string, it might, but W might not be. So I can't necessarily guarantee that, so I gotta make another machine. So construct M prime again, which takes the input X. So what do I want? I want to feed M prime to D eventually. So what do I want? I want if M accepts W, then I want M prime's language to have the empty string in it. And if M does not accept W, I want the empty string to not be in the language of M prime. Are there any two favorite languages that have empty string and one that doesn't? Sigma star and empty set. Same examples. Even though this is a wildly different language comparatively. So let's see. Well, I need to accept all the strings that are in the empty set. I'm already done. So what do I need to do next?
Run M on W.
Run M on W. Yeah, run M on W. Yep. Not run M on W. And then for if M accepts W, we will accept X. So it's actually exactly the same machine, which is pretty cool. Then we run D on M prime again. If D accepts, then that must mean that the empty string is in M prime's language. So if the empty string is in M prime's language, what do I know about M and W? M must have accepted W because if it didn't, it wouldn't have accepted anything at all. So that must mean that we should accept it because we just determined that M accepted W. And then if D rejects, then that must mean that the empty string is not in M prime's language. And therefore, if empty string is not in M prime's language, what do I know about M and W? It couldn't have accepted W. Because if it did, it would have accepted everything. So I should say it did. And this tells me that ESTM is undecidable. Okay. Any questions about that? Yeah.
I mean, this again looks the same question more or
Yeah.
less. It looks like I could take this whole explanation and paste that under every arbitrary problem.
Yes, if you're reducing from ATM, yes.
Okay, so I could more or less for the exam sit down and just learn the whole thing, and as soon as someone
Yeah.
says like use that and just paste that thing in there without
Yeah.
caring about what actually is asked.
You should care. But behind the scenes of Rice's theorem is actually this. What we did in both cases is actually what happens at the back end of Rice's theorem. So if you're doing it this way from ATM and you could apply Rice's theorem, you'd be a fool if you did this. It's much smarter to do this because it's much easier to do. But you're right. The fact of whether that we're making a machine in both cases and running a supposed decider on it, that's actually used in a lot of undecidable reduction proofs. I can actually do one that's not from ATM if you want. Okay, so let's do. Did we do EQTM in class?
It was on the homework, I think. Or was it in class?
EQTM.
Yeah, we did do that.
Oh, yeah, sorry. we did.
I'll do it again.
This wouldn't be useful.
So let's do EQ.
As well.
I'll make one. So E in. I'm making these names up. So it's consisting of two Turing machines, M1 and M2 are TMs, and they have disjoint intersection. They have empty intersection. Okay, so it's not quite EQTM, but it's very close in the sense that instead of having the only difference would be that instead of empty set here, it'd be one of those two, if they were the same. And that this is undecidable. Can I apply Rice's theorem to this problem, this language? Does it consist of Turing machine descriptions?
Yes.
Single Turing machine descriptions? No. So I can't apply Rice's theorem to this. So I have to do a reduction. Okay? Well, let's see. I got to reduce some problem to this guy. Okay? So what language do you think would be, that's undecidable, would be easiest to reduce to EIN in this case? Well, I could do ATM. But what's one do you think would be easier? ETM. Yeah. So let's do ETM. I should put a TM on the bottom. It's definitely a trademark. All right. So I'm supposing that there's a decider for ENTM. So suppose D decides ENTM. So that guy takes two arbitrary machines. Oh, no, that wouldn't work. Yeah, that reduction would work. Yeah, that one. So yeah, so the idea that I was trying to do was I'm going to be given a single machine M to try to decide whether it has empty language or not. Then I would feed a machine. Yeah, I would feed that input machine and another machine that rejects everything. Then I know for sure that their intersection is empty, but that doesn't imply anything about whether the first machine had empty language. All right. Let's see. Let's do this one. Let's do alt. And so, sorry about that. Hard to come up with these on the spot. So, what is this? This is Turing machines with language infinite. Single star. So they accept everything. And then this is undecidable too. So, let's see. Well, I could do Rice's theorem. So if you have two machines with the same language, then either they're both sigma star or both not. That's easy. We can easily make a machine that does accept everything and one that doesn't. So for reduction, though, Yeah, because an easy proof would be from ATM. And the idea would be on input MW, be M prime, be on input X. Then you would first run M on W, and it's almost the same thing. If yeah, so it's actually the exact same. All right.
Copy paste.
These are like 15 points on the fly. Brian's gonna tell Golden now. Don't have these.
Subset problem was given being with along F1 subset along with
Yeah, but what would that decide?
we can use Q DM to reduce. We can run
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. You would run it both ways.
Yeah.
Into the recipe. All right. Now. This one's guaranteed to work.
Yeah.
So this problem is obviously we can't use Rice's theorem because it's not two Turing machines, and I want to decide whether the first machine's language is a subset of the other. In other words, every string accepted by the first machine is is a subset of the second machine. So what problem could I reduce from to do this? I could use ATM here, but what would be easier? The EQTM. So let's use EQTM, which we know to be undecidable. And then let's reduce the subTM. So as before, we need to assume a decider for subTM. So suppose D decides subTM. And then now we gotta make a decider based off that for EQTM. So what does EQTM take as input? Two machines, yeah. So on input M1, M2, where M1 and M2 are TMs, as usual. Well, what would a necessary condition be for these two machines to have the same language? Well, if I determine that M1 is a subset of M2's language, and the other way, what do I know? Do I have a way of checking, supposedly, that one's a subset of the other? Yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the decider twice. One for M1 and M2, then the other time M2, M1. Okay? So run D on M1, M2, then run D on M2, M1. If I want to say that they're equivalent, what should be true about the first two steps? Both of them had to accept. Yeah. So if both of these accept, otherwise, then only one of them at most is true, then we should reject. Okay. And so therefore, since I can make this machine in a finite amount of time, and it'll run in a finite amount of time, assuming D also does, then I can determine that subTM is undecidable. Yeah, so to answer your question, it doesn't always have to be where you make a machine and the format actually from the next question that I didn't get to yet, it's not exactly the same format. It just happened to be the same here, but it's not always the case that you have to make a machine then do something with it. Whereas here, we just ran the supposed decider both ways, and we know if it's a subset both ways, then they must be equal. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions about this? So let's do that. How many of you know CSE355? The grad version of this? This was actually one of the homework problems from when I took it. I got the full points on it. so this one is concrete. So this function LMN is just the length of all the words in LMN. And then we want reglen and to be all machines, and L of M is regular. So just as an example, if you have a Turing machine that accepts everything, then it has a string of every single length, and then therefore L of M is just 1 star at that point. So therefore it would be in there. Another example, if it rejects everything, then L of M would be the empty set, but that's also regular too. Okay. Could I use Rice's theorem to prove that it's undecidable?
Yes.
Yeah, so it only has Turing machine descriptions, good. If you have 2 machines with the same language, is it the case that both of them are in or out?
Yeah.
Yeah, if they have the same language, then that must mean they have the same lengths of strings, which must mean they're either both regular or not. Can I find a language, can I find a machine that is in reglentium and one that isn't?